Are you interested in homebrewing your own tabletop RPG campaign? Well, it doesn't have to be as intimidating as you might think. I've been working on a new tabletop adventure and I'm approaching the process a little bit differently than usual. I'm writing out the whole campaign all at once, front to back. So in the past, I might not have recommended this way of doing things, but now that I'm in the middle of planning and writing, I've kind of come up with a new method, and I think it's actually not that complicated. And I'm hoping that by the end of this video, you'll feel inspired and ready to jump into planning your own homebrew campaign, because it's really, really fun and really, really rewarding. Okay, so a little bit of context here. Over the next 3 months, I'm going to be releasing a old school NES RPG inspired campaign setting over on my Patreon. It's a system neutral adventure for lower level characters that will probably take 6 or so sessions if you're going really fast. It's called Asterlin Odyssey. It's highly inspired by the original Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy games, so I'm filling these books up with tons of pixel art, whimsical monsters, and a fun, lighthearted, save the world style story. So Drakon, the evil warlock, has summoned all these monsters and they're causing chaos all over Asterlin, and the players have 13 days to stop his evil plans or he'll open a portal to the shadow world. They'll need to rescue townsfolk, explore dungeons, find magic items, and get the help of a dragon if they hope to defeat Drakon. Check out the first link down in the description. It'll take you to the Patreon post explaining all about Asterlin Odyssey, and join the Patreon to get the digital version or the physical zine version sent straight to your mailbox over the next few months. Okay, so usually when I start a new adventure like this, I start really small and then slowly add more details and iterate as I go. But this time I'm doing the whole adventure, the whole campaign in one fell swoop. So how do I start planning? Well, the first thing is to come up with a theme and a tone for the adventure. In this case, Asterlin Odyssey is the tabletop version of those old Nintendo video game RPGs. So the story is simple and the players always know what their goal is. There's an evil wizard and a bunch of monsters to fight and a big colorful world to explore. If it helps, you can make a list of inspiration or even just jot down words that evoke the feeling that you're going for. In fact, all we're really doing in this process is making a few lists, so it's really gonna be pretty easy. So once you have a theme and tone in mind, I like to write down, make it very solid, the main quest of the adventure, the through line that's going to take your players from start to finish. In this case, Drakon, the evil warlock, has summoned all these monsters and is trying to open a portal to the shadow world, which is not a good thing. The players are going to want to stop that from happening, so the main quest is simple: defeat the big bad evil guy. But since this is the main quest, I do think it's important to add a little bit more to it to get the players really invested on sending their characters on this dangerous mission. So let's say the monsters have set fire to the town where the players come from, and they've stolen this magical object, the golden orb that Drakon is using to open the portal to the shadow world. So I guess now the main quest is defeat the big bad evil guy, retrieve the magical item, and get revenge. And hopefully the players can latch on to at least one of those objectives and feel invested in the game. All right, now that we have the main quest figured out, it's actually given us our start and end location. So the players will start in their hometown, the burned down village, and the adventure ends when they confront Drakon in his evil castle high in the mountains. Now, actually, that sounds like a pretty good one-shot to me, but I want to make this an entire campaign, so we gotta add a bunch more locations to this adventure. Okay, let's start by making a list of places the players can explore. So I'm gonna make a list of safe places where the players can rest and restock their inventory and talk to NPCs and get quests from. And then I'm gonna make a list of dangerous places where monsters lurk and the players can go to fight things and find treasure. So the safe places in Asterland are an elf village in the forest, a dwarf village in the mountains, there's a doggo village in the hills. Doggos are what I'm calling like dog folk people. There's going to be a wizard's town and maybe a ghost town too. Now that's a pretty simple list. Obviously, I haven't given anything names yet. Naming stuff is the hardest part. It takes me forever. But remember, this is all inspired by the old school NES stuff, so it's meant to be simple. So if you want to get weirder and more detailed with your towns and stuff, definitely go for it. Okay, next up is a list of the dangerous places. So there's going to be some ancient ruins overrun with monsters. There's a slime swamp, some sort of fire dungeon, a lake dungeon, maybe a fear cave, and of course, Dracon's castle. And really, just like that, we have a bunch of locations for the players to explore in between their hometown and Dracon's castle. And now comes the really fun part. We're gonna start making connections in between these locations, basically making one of those big conspiracy flowcharts. Now I'm gonna draw out each of these locations onto this big sheet of paper. I'm starting with the burned down village at the top and Dracon's castle at the bottom, and then sort of spreading out the rest of the locations in between. I guess you can actually do this on a regular size sheet of paper. I'm just doing it on this big graph paper to be dramatic. Okay, so a big part of the old original Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy games was you needed to find the magical item or the right character that would help you progress to the next area of the world, the next part of the story. So for example, if you want to get to the dungeon in the middle of the lake, you're going to need a boat. And if you want to get to Dracon's castle that's high up in the mountains, you're going to need a way to fly there. So if the players need a boat, I guess they could just buy one, but it would be more fun if they had to go on a quest to get one instead. And I think an easy way to make a quest feel more meaningful, have the players be more invested in doing the quest, is to tie it back into that main quest storyline. So with that in mind, let's make our first connection between locations, and I'm not really going in any particular order here because we're going to fill up this entire chart by the end of the process. So let's say the doggos would be happy to lend the players one of their boats, but since Dracon's return, the slimes in the slime swamp have started acting crazy and have been attacking the doggo town. So the doggos sent their warriors into the swamps using the boats to attack the slimes, and nobody's been seen since. So now if the players want to get a boat, they have to help the doggos, go into the swamp, see what's happening, and hopefully save the day. Now while the players are in the swamp, maybe they find a magical shield. So this magical shield could be very helpful just as an item for them to use in their final battle against Drakon. Or it could be one of the relics the dwarves are requiring the party to get in order for them to agree to fight against Dracon's monster army. So now we'll draw a line from the slime swamp to the dwarf town. Or maybe the players meet a swamp tortu, like a tortoise person, that tells them a rumor about the dragon in the lake dungeon. Some sort of helpful information that will give the players the upper hand when they go explore that dungeon, but it's also acting as a way to point them to actually going to the lake dungeon. Okay, so hopefully you see how this is working, and now it's time to just go crazy making different connections, drawing lines from location to location. My general rule is there needs to be at least 2 quests or rumors or some reasons going out of each location. And if you get stuck, it might be helpful to make a list of types of quests that players can go on, just a real general list. You know, the players can go rescue someone or steal something, deliver, gather, escort, negotiate, investigate. There's lots of different quest options that will add variety to the types of things the players will be doing at each location. Now, things might get kind of messy as you're drawing all of these connections, so in the end, it might be worth taking a little bit of time and kind of redrawing your flowchart map here. And actually, now that I say that, this is a fantastic fantastic way of getting a visual of what your world map will look like without doing any actual drawing. In next week's video, I'm going to be showing how I do the pixel art world map of Asterlin. So if you're interested in seeing that video, it might be a good time to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Okay. The other cool thing about this flowchart method is that if you're just running your adventure for yourself, for your own table, you don't really have to do that much work beyond this, you know? At the end of the session, ask your players where they think they're going to be going, and then you can plan the details as you go. So like your players have already explored the slime swamp, and in the next session, they're going to head to the lake dungeon. So all you have to do before the next session is plan out the lake dungeon. You already have all of the fun items and clues that they'll find there written down. Maybe you can add a little bit extra, something that fits in with one of the characters' backstories, or have them meet up with an NPC that they've already met before. But really beyond that, it's just a matter of making a map and filling it with some fun encounters. And speaking of fun encounters, if you are doing this method of preparation and planning, it might be a good idea to make a list of random encounters, random wilderness encounters, maybe by the type of terrain that the players are exploring. That way, if the next game rolls around and the players decide, oh, wait a second, we got to go to the dwarf village and the mountains before we go to the lake dungeon, you'll have some stuff that you can throw at them in the meantime. You can always use the monster manual or some other book of monsters to come up with some fun fights that can happen, but I think adding some non-combat encounters is a good thing to have too. You know, maybe there's a traveling merchant that the players can spend some of that gold that they found in the slime swamp at, or maybe there's a unicorn that gets the players' attention and tries to lead them into the forest, or maybe they see a fire off in the distance and they got to decide whether they want to continue on to the dwarf town or go investigate this fire. It's always fun to fight monsters, but having a couple of extra leads and sort of random floating ways to point to different locations, whether it be a quest or rumors or whatever, just adds some life to your world and makes traveling around and exploring a little bit more interesting. And really, that's all there is to it. This flowchart method, I guess that's what I'm going to call it, flowchart method of designing a tabletop role-playing game campaign. If you're interested in checking out Asterlin Odyssey, it's going to be releasing over the next 3 months on my Patreon. Check out the link in the description. The books and the PDFs are going to be filled with all kinds of fun stuff, lots of pixel art, which I'll be making more videos about coming up. But I hope this video was helpful and inspiring, and let me know in the comments if you plan on making your own homebrew campaign, or if you have any of your own tips for making the whole process easier and more fun. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya! My ankle popped. See ya.